My parents completely brushed off my emergency while I was literally collapsing. They were too wrapped up celebrating my brother to notice or care. So yeah, I eventually returned the favor, and not in a way they ever saw coming. Name's Ethan. I'm 34 now, and I used to run a little custom motorcycle repair shop. I'll get to what happened with that later. I grew up in Bristol, Tennessee. The town itself? Not so bad. But my home life? That's where things really went off the rails. I've got a younger brother, Caleb. He's 3 years behind me. And let me tell you, in my parents' eyes, the kid practically walked on water. It was all Caleb all the time in our house. The living room was like a tribute to him, like a baseball shrine or something out of Cooperstown. Trophies lined the shelves like they were made of solid gold. And the walls were covered in team photos and framed jerseys like he was the second coming of Babe Ruth. Not even joking, my folks had a special cabinet built just to show off his sports gear. Me? I had a knack for auto shop back in high school. Rebuilt engines, won some awards. Know where my stuff ended up? Shoved in a drawer somewhere, maybe even tossed out. My dad gave me a half-hearted, "That's nice," once every few months, if that. I remember this one summer when I was 16. I busted my ass fixing up this old Kawasaki engine. Saved up for months working at a gas station just to get all the parts. Finally got it running, and man, I was proud. So I called my dad out to the garage to show him. He barely glanced at it. Maybe stood there 20 seconds, muttered, "That's nice, son." Then immediately asked if I'd seen Caleb's batting stats in the morning paper. I mean, seriously? That moment pretty much summed up my entire childhood. My mom would go all out making Caleb his favorite pregame meals. "Gotta make sure my all-stars fueled up," she'd say. But if I had a bike show coming up, I was told to just grab leftovers from the fridge. My dad? He left work early for every one of Caleb's games without fail. But when I came in second at a regional custom bike competition, too busy, couldn't make it. I eventually just stopped telling them about my events altogether. What was the point? And don't even get me started on the money they poured into him. Private coaches, high-end gear, travel teams crisscrossing the state. We're talking thousands. Meanwhile, I worked 2 jobs in high school just to scrape together enough for my tools and bike parts. My folks didn't chip in a cent. Here's the kicker, though. I didn't hate Caleb for any of it. He was a decent kid, just totally pampered and clueless about how unfair everything was. Sometimes I'd catch him looking awkward when they'd shower him with praise right after ignoring something I'd said. But he never spoke up. Why would he? He had it made. By the time I turned 18, I knew I had to get out or I'd lose my damn mind. I'd been saving every spare dollar and finally managed to rent this tiny garage about 8 miles from home. Just far enough to avoid the daily Caleb worship, but still close if anyone in my family ever actually wanted to reach out. Spoiler alert, they didn't. I started that motorcycle repair business from absolute scratch. No help from my parents. No fancy loans. No family friends giving me a leg up. Just me grinding 16-hour days. Sleeping on a beat-up old cot in the back of the shop for that whole first year until I could finally afford a real apartment. It was brutal work, but I was damn good at it. Word got around that I could do better mods and repairs than the big dealerships, and for half the cost. The shop became everything to me. My dog Buster. Lazy old mutt. He'd hang out there all day, napping in the sun by the door while I worked. That place made me feel like I actually mattered, like I had value. Like maybe I wasn't just background noise. And then there was Sophie. She moved in next door about 2 years ago, opened up this adorable little coffee shop. First time she came over, she brought me a welcome to the neighborhood cup of coffee. I almost dropped my damn wrench. She was stunning, bright, funny, way out of my league. But for whatever reason, she liked chatting with me. She'd hang around talking engines and bike builds, and I'll admit it, every time she walked over, I got those stupid butterflies. Still, I kept it cool. Friendly. Neighborly. Nothing more. I mean, why would someone like her be interested in a grease-covered guy like me? My parents had spent years making me feel like I wasn't worth much. Hard not to carry that around. But things were okay. Business was steady. Buster was happy. And Sophie didn't seem to mind swinging by for a chat every now and then. I actually thought maybe, just maybe, I was building a life for myself. Then came the day that ripped the blinders off. It was a Tuesday 2 years ago. I was working on this high-end Ducati. Some rich guy from Nashville had brought it in for custom work, wanted a bunch of fancy modifications. Bit of a hassle, but he was paying top dollar, so I wasn't going to complain. Buster was sprawled out in his usual spot, snoring away like a champ. I had AC/DC cranking on my busted old speakers. I was using my plasma cutter to adjust the frame. Done it 100 times before, nothing tricky. But something went sideways. I still don't know exactly what happened. Maybe there was a flaw in the metal. Maybe I got distracted. All I know is, 1 second I was focused on the cut, and the next, I heard this horrible screech, saw sparks fly, and then the cutter kicked back, hard. It sliced straight through my right leg. Just above the knee. The metal glowed red hot as it cut into me, and I swear, the smell of burning flesh? That's something you don't ever forget. I screamed so loud Buster jumped up like he was ready to fight whatever attacked me. Blood was pouring out like, spraying with every heartbeat. I collapsed backward, cracked my head on the concrete floor. That just made everything worse. The pain? Unbelievable. Felt like someone had shoved my leg in a furnace and started twisting. I've broken bones, cut myself on sharp parts, burned myself on hot exhaust pipes, you name it. But this? This was something else entirely. I was yelling for help, screaming it, but my shop's in the middle of nowhere. And the music? Blasting too loud for anyone outside to hear. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grab my phone. Blood was pooling beneath me fast, spreading across the shop floor like I'd knocked over a full bucket of red paint. My heart was pounding out of my chest, and this cold, clammy sweat was crawling over every inch of my skin. I finally managed to hit call with my bloody fingers slipping across the screen. My mom picked up. I was gasping, barely able to form words. "Mom," I choked out, "I'm hurt real bad. The cutter, my leg, there's so much blood. I need help. Now." And her voice? Calm. Casual. Like I just called to ask what time dinner was. "Ethan, honey, we're kind of in the middle of something important. Can you call an ambulance?" I just froze for a second. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, please," I begged, voice cracking from the pain and panic. "I'm bleeding out. I don't think I can. I need help. Please." I was getting dizzy. The room started spinning like I was on a boat. She sighed. "Just hang on, Ethan. We'll get there when we can." And then click. She hung up. I was still on the concrete, pressing a rag into the gash, but it was useless. Soaked with blood in seconds. My vision narrowed into this weird tunnel, darkness creeping in at the edges like my world was shutting down. I tried dialing 911, but my hands were too slick with blood. I couldn't hit the numbers right. Buster was going nuts. Barking, whining, nudging at my face like he was trying to keep me from slipping away. Smart damn dog. He must have known something was really wrong. With what little strength I had left, I called my mom again, no answer. Then I tried my dad. Straight to voicemail. Figures. I thought about praying just in case, but even that got interrupted. Buster kept nudging me like he was saying, "Nope. Not yet, buddy." And then my phone buzzed. Caleb's name popped up on the screen. For a second, I thought maybe my parents had finally said something. Maybe he was calling to check on me, figure out what to do. But when I answered, his voice hit me like a slap. "Hey Noah," he yelled, slurring his words. He sounded drunk. I could hear music blasting in the background, people laughing, clinking glasses. "Noah? Who the hell is Noah?" Before I could say anything, he kept talking. "What's up, man? Big day today." I was confused, dizzy, and barely hanging on. "Caleb," I gasped, forcing the words out. "Help, accident, shop bleeding, need help." There was a brief pause. Then he laughed. "Oh crap, sorry. Thought you were someone else calling to congratulate me. We're partying right now, just signed with the AA Braves. $2 million deal, baby." In the background, I heard my mom. "Caleb, honey, come take a picture with the scout." I tried to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. My mouth just stopped working. My head felt like it was floating. "Caleb," I whispered. But he'd already hung up. Then I heard my dad's voice, loud and proud, booming in the background. "That's my boy. Professional baseball player. Knew you had it in you." And there I was, lying on the floor of my shop, bleeding out alone, while my entire family was just 8 damn miles away, too busy celebrating Caleb's latest win to bother checking on me. "Caleb, please," I whispered again, but he was gone. Everything around me started to blur. The pain started fading, replaced by this eerie calm, like I was floating above myself. I knew what was happening. Shock. I'd seen it before. This wasn't just bad, it was end-of-the-line bad. Buster's barking suddenly shifted. He wasn't just panicking now, he was desperate. And then, through the fog in my brain, I heard the shop door slam open. Ethan. I brought you some coffee and oh my God, Ethan. Sophie. Her voice cut through everything, sharp and panicked. Then her face appeared over me and man, the look in her eyes, I hated that she had to see me like this. I'd always tried to play it cool around her. Act like I had my shit together. Ethan, stay with me. Don't you dare close your eyes, she shouted, already on the phone with 911. We need an ambulance. Now. Severe bleeding, possibly arterial. Patient is losing consciousness. Next thing I knew, she had ripped off her belt and wrapped it tight around my upper leg. Tourniquet. She knew what she was doing. The pain from that sent a jolt through my body. For a second, it pulled me back. Sophie, I muttered. Don't talk, she said firmly. Save your strength. Her hands were covered in my blood, but she didn't stop. Not for a second. The ambulance is on the way. You're not dying on me, Ethan. You hear me? Stay awake. Just stay with me. I wanted to tell her I didn't need an ambulance anymore, that she'd already saved me just by showing up. If I was going out, at least it was with her holding me. That thought alone almost made it okay. The last thing I saw before blacking out was her face, stained with tears, whispering my name over and over again. Later, I found out Buster had barked nonstop for so long that she came over to see what was wrong. If she hadn't, I wouldn't be here typing this right now. The doctor said I had maybe 5 minutes left when she found me. I woke up in the hospital to the steady beeping of machines and that awful sterile smell you only find in hospitals. My leg felt like someone lit it on fire, but at least I was still breathing. Sophie was passed out in the chair next to my bed, her clothes still stained with my blood. Her hair was a mess and there were dark circles under her eyes, but she'd never looked more beautiful to me. I just stared at her for a minute, realizing how damn lucky I was. A few hours later, the doctor came in. Serious guy, clipboard in hand, voice steady and professional. You're lucky to be alive, he said. If your neighbor hadn't found you when she did, you'd have bled out in another 5 minutes. Then he cleared his throat, the kind of pause that usually comes before bad news. The damage to your leg was severe. The cutter sliced your femoral artery and tore through muscle and nerves. We managed to save the leg, but... He hesitated, trying to soften the blow. You'll need multiple surgeries. And there's a strong chance you won't regain full function. Long periods of standing may not be possible. This kind of injury, well, it could mean I can't work on bikes anymore, I said, finishing the sentence for him. He gave me that solemn doctor nod. The words felt like broken glass in my mouth. My shop, my passion, everything I'd built with my own hands, it all slipped away in one stupid, freak accident. What the hell was I supposed to do now? That's when Sophie stirred, opened her eyes, and immediately reached for my hand. I was so scared, she whispered. There was so much blood, you were so pale. I thought I was going to lose you. I tried to smile for Sophie's sake even though everything inside me felt broken. Thanks for saving my life, I said quietly. She squeezed my hand and looked at me gently. Have your parents come by at all? I called the number listed in your emergency contacts. I let out a tired breath and just shook my head. I didn't have it in me to explain the whole twisted mess. Right then, as if the universe had a sense of irony, my phone started buzzing. My dad's name lit up the screen. For a split second, I let myself believe maybe, just maybe, they cared. Maybe they'd heard and were finally checking in. I answered. Dad, I said, trying not to sound too hopeful. His voice came through dry, emotionless, like a business call. Ethan, your mother and I need to borrow $25,000 for Caleb's equipment and relocation. He starts with the new team soon. I felt like I'd been punched straight in the gut. No, how are you? No, we heard what happened. Just money. For Caleb. Again. I'm in the hospital, I said slowly, my voice trembling from a mix of rage and disbelief. I nearly died yesterday. I was bleeding out and no one came. I called you. I begged. There was an awkward pause. Then my dad finally replied, brushing it off like I'd scraped my knee. Don't be so dramatic, Ethan. It was just a cut. Just a cut? I snapped. I almost bled to death. The doctor said I had 5 minutes left. You were too busy throwing Caleb a party to even answer the phone. Sophie was watching me now, her eyes wide. Look, my dad said, clearly irritated, we're sorry you got hurt, but Caleb's contract is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. This is a big deal. And I'm not. I asked, hating the way my voice cracked. The silence on the other end said more than any words ever could. We still need that money by next week, he said, flat as ever. I hung up. No goodbye, no response. Just ended the call. Then I opened my banking app and stared at the screen. For the past 5 years, I'd been sending them $1,000 a month. Always told myself it was the right thing to do. They said they were struggling and I believed them. Now I knew where every damn dollar went, straight into Caleb's career. With a couple taps, I shut off the auto transfer. Done. 5 years of helping them, and when I needed them most, they left me to die on a cold shop floor. Sophie sat back down, still looking stunned. Ethan, I heard part of that. Did they really not come when you called them? I nodded. And then I told her everything. About what it was like growing up in Caleb's shadow. About how I called them while bleeding out and they brushed me off. About the money I'd sent them over the years, money they used to boost up the golden child while leaving me behind. By the time I was done, Sophie looked like she wanted to throw something across the room. That's not family, she said, her voice tight with anger. That's not how parents treat their child. That's honestly just messed up. She didn't leave my side for the entire first week I was in the hospital. Brought me real food every day because hospital meals were basically cardboard. Helped me work the damn remote. Sat with me, told stories, made me laugh when I needed it most. No one had ever done anything like that for me before. Then one afternoon I got a text from Caleb. Hey bro, heard you got hurt? That sucks. Also, did you tell mom and dad you're not helping with my expenses anymore? Not cool, man. Family helps family. I didn't even answer. Next day, my mom left a voicemail. Ethan, honey, I know you're upset, but this is Caleb's big break. We really need that money. Call us back. I played it out loud. Sophie was in the room. She took the phone out of my hand and deleted the message. You don't need the kind of negativity in your life right now. Then she surprised me. She held my hand and said softly, you know what? I'll be your family now. Me and Buster. Something about the way she said it made my chest ache in a whole different way, nothing to do with meds or injuries. And when she looked at me, it wasn't pity I saw. It was care. Real care. And maybe something else I hadn't let myself hope for. The doctors told me I was looking at 2 more surgeries, minimum, plus months of physical therapy. The bills were already stacking up like a bad joke. My garbage insurance covered maybe half of it, and that was after hours of arguments and red tape. And I couldn't work. My shop was just sitting there, empty and quiet, but the rent was still due. I'm screwed, I told Sophie one night when it all came crashing down. I can't work, I can't pay my bills, I can't keep the shop. Everything I built, it's all gone. She just held my hand tighter. We'll figure it out, she said. I'm not going anywhere. That night, after she left, I lay there in the dark thinking about how my own parents couldn't drive 8 miles to save my life, but Sophie, who I'd known less than 2 years, was showing up for me every single day. You don't always get to choose the family you're born into. But sometimes the family you find, they're worth a hell of a lot more. Later, when a nurse came in to check my vitals, she saw I was still awake. You should get some sleep, she smiled. Your girlfriend can come back tomorrow. I didn't correct her. And for the first time since the accident, I actually fell asleep feeling something close to hope. The months that followed were a full-on disaster. Recovering from this kind of injury isn't just physically brutal, it's humiliating. I went from being the guy who could rebuild a whole engine in a day to someone who needed help just getting to the bathroom. 3 surgeries in 2 months. The first one was to repair the deeper damage in my leg. The second was for a nasty infection that started brewing. The third? That one was to try to fix some of the nerve damage that was making my whole leg feel like it didn't belong to me. Each time I got wheeled into the OR, I kept hoping this would be the one to fix me. And each time I woke up, I saw that look on the doctors' faces, the one that said, not quite. Turns out the doc had been right. I was never going to stand for hours on end again. Forget bending under bikes, lifting engines, crouching on a cold floor for a 10-hour day. That part of my life? Gone. My shop sat empty. Rent still needed paying, even if no one was walking through the door. Meanwhile, my savings were getting drained faster than the fuel in a leaky tank. Medical bills stacked up into something like a cruel joke, over $80,000. Even with insurance, I was on the hook for most of it. And that was after begging them on the phone for hours to cover the basics. Sophie? She never flinched. Drove me to every appointment. Helped me through every slow, painful step of rehab. Stayed late, talking about anything except injuries and bills, just trying to help me feel normal again. And honestly, without her, I would have fallen apart completely. Sophie's coffee shop was doing pretty well, so she started bringing me dinner after she caught on correctly that I'd been skipping meals to stretch what little cash I had left. One evening, after she helped me hobble back into my apartment post-therapy, I was sweaty, sore, and still trying to balance on crutches with a brace strapped to my leg. That's when I finally worked up the nerve to ask her, "Why are you doing all this?" I said, looking at her. "I mean, is this pity or what? I can't tell if you've got a crush on me or if you're just being nice to a washed-up grease monkey." She rolled her eyes like I was the dumbest guy alive. Because I care about you, dummy, she said as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Then she leaned in and kissed me. And no, it wasn't some Hollywood perfect moment. I probably reeked of sweat and disinfectant, still in gym shorts from PT, awkwardly clinging to my crutches so I didn't faceplant. But right then, I felt something I hadn't in months. Hope. I've had a thing for you since the day I moved in next door, she admitted, blushing a little. I kept showing up with coffee, hoping you'd ask me out. I thought you were just neighborly, I said, feeling like the king of idiots. She laughed. Ethan, I don't bring coffee to all the neighbors. 2 weeks later, she moved in. It just kind of happened. She was already spending most nights at my place, helping me out, cooking, making sure I didn't trip over Buster in the middle of the night. She said it was more practical, but we both knew it was more than that. It could have been awkward going from neighbors to roommates to whatever we were now, but it wasn't. It felt natural. Right? And my family? Did they call even once to see how I was doing? Take a wild guess. The only contact I got was a text from my mom asking if I'd reconsidered helping with Caleb's expenses. That was the last straw. I blocked her number. Meanwhile, I was trying not to have a full-blown meltdown over money. My savings were just about drained. Bills were stacking up like firewood. And the worst part? I had no clue what to do next. My entire identity was wrapped around being a motorcycle mechanic. I didn't know who I was without that. What am I gonna do, Sophie? I asked one night, lying on my back, staring up at the ceiling. I can't go back to fixing bikes. I'm useless now. She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at me with that steady gaze of hers. You're not useless. You're just different now. You still know more about motorcycles than anyone in this town. I let out a bitter laugh. That and $5 will get me a cup of coffee. So don't fix bikes, she said. Teach other people how to. I looked at her like she'd grown a second head. Who the hell would want to learn from me? She just smirked. You remember the kid Chloe? He was always hanging around your shop asking questions. Start with him. Chloe, 19 years old. Constantly hanging around before the accident asking stuff about engines, tools, torque specs. Annoying, yeah, but eager. And earnest. The next day, I called him. Hey, want to learn how to rebuild a carburetor? He showed up at my apartment within the hour, grinning like I'd offered him a spot in the Avengers. We started right at my kitchen table, diagrams, small parts one could handle while sitting down. Nothing fancy, but Chloe was locked in, taking notes, asking questions, soaking it all up. I charged him $20 a session. Not a lot, but it was something. Chloe told his friends. Soon, I had 3 students. Then 5. I moved the lessons out to my garage. It wasn't exactly a classroom, but it had tools, space, and bikes to work on. It felt almost like the old days, except now, instead of building bikes, I was building mechanics. It still wasn't a ton of money, but it was enough to chip away at the medical bills, keep the lights on, and buy dog food for Buster. Sophie watched it all happen with the smug, told you so grin that she tried not to let show too much. You're actually good at this, she said one night. Ever think about making it official? Like a legit trade school? I laughed it off, but the thought stuck in my head. My leg still wasn't anywhere near normal. The doc said the pain and limp were probably permanent. Standing too long? Out of the question. But I was adjusting. Learning what my new normal looked like. For months after the accident, I stepped back into my shop not as a mechanic, but as a teacher. I'd set up a corner with folding chairs and a beat-up whiteboard. The work area was still there, fully stocked with tools, but now it was a classroom for hands-on learning. 6 regular students came through every week. Mostly guys in their late teens or early 20s who couldn't afford a real trade school. I charged just enough to pay the bills, but not so much that I priced them out. It wasn't making me rich, but with Sophie's help I was staying afloat. And then, out of nowhere, the shop door opened while I was sitting at my desk, going over carb diagrams for the next day's lesson. Sophie called from the front, her voice tight. Ethan, your parents are here. My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen them since before the accident. They walked in like nothing had happened. Like they just stopped by for lunch. Neither one even looked at my leg brace or the cane I was using. Ethan, my dad said, already in business mode. We need to talk to you about something important. I didn't offer them a seat. I didn't say a word. I just waited. Caleb's having some complications with the team, Mom chimed in, adjusting her overpriced purse. The contract had fine print we didn't see, and he needs to buy his way out of part of it. It's a legal thing, Dad added, real serious. It's gonna cost around $40,000 to $50,000. We've looked at our options and the best solution is for you to sell the shop. I just stared at them. For a second, I genuinely couldn't tell if they were serious or insane. You want me to sell my business, the one I built from nothing, to bail Caleb out of a contract he didn't bother to read? This place is just sitting here while you're recovering, Mom said, waving a hand like the shop was a cluttered garage full of yard sale junk. If you sell now, you can help Caleb and still have money left to start something new later. I couldn't believe it. After everything, after ignoring me when I was bleeding out on the floor, they had the audacity to walk in here and ask me to sell my life for Caleb? I took a deep breath, trying not to completely lose it. Let me get this straight, I said, voice flat. You want me to give up the only thing I have left to fix a problem your golden boy caused all by himself? Dad frowned like I was the unreasonable one. Don't be selfish, Ethan. This is your brother's future we're talking about, my dad snapped. And stop pretending this is a real business. What, teaching kids how to screw in bolts? Come on. I nearly fell out of my chair. Selfish? Me? Before I could even open my mouth, Sophie stepped forward from behind the counter. Her eyes were blazing. Selfish? Are you serious right now? Both my parents turned to her, startled, like they just noticed she was standing there. Ethan almost died, she said, voice sharp, shaking with fury. He called you, begged you for help. He was lying on the floor, bleeding out, and you couldn't even be bothered to show up. Because you were too busy popping champagne for Caleb. She didn't stop. He's been through 3 surgeries. He might never fully recover. And not one visit. Not a call. Nothing. And now you show up asking him to sell the one thing he's managed to rebuild after all that for Caleb. The room went dead quiet. Her words hung in the air like a slap across the face. Mom looked offended, lips tightening. And who are you? This is a family matter. You need to stay out of it. No, I said, cutting her off cold. Sophie is family. More family than either of you have ever been to me. I pointed to the door. Get out. And don't come back. Dad's face turned bright red. You ungrateful little A. Get out. I shouted, pushing myself up despite the burning pain in my leg. He slammed the door so hard it rattled the windows. I dropped back into my chair, wincing as the pain surged through my leg. Sophie came over, gently taking my hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. I shouldn't have stepped in. I squeezed her hand. No. You said exactly what needed to be said. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I regretted anything, I didn't. But because I couldn't get over the sheer audacity of it all. After everything they didn't do for me, they still had the nerve to ask me to give up the one thing I had left. The next morning, I made some decisions. First, I went to the bank and removed both of them from my emergency contact list. Then I called a buddy of mine, he's not really my lawyer, but he is a lawyer, and asked him to draw up a will. Everything I owned was to go to Sophie. I even called the hospital and made sure they had instructions. If anything ever happened to me again, my parents were not to be contacted or given any information. I was done. A week later, Sophie and I were tidying up the shop after one of our evening lessons. She paused, looked around at the folding chairs, the whiteboard, the workstations. I think we should make this official, she said. Make what official? I asked. She gestured around. This. The school. Let's register it. Get certified. Do it right. I gave her a look. Sophie, that'd cost a fortune. Licenses, upgrades, permits, paperwork. She grinned. So? My coffee shop's doing great. I've got savings. We could be partners. Business partners? I asked. She walked over, kissed me on the cheek, and said that too. 2 weeks later, we filed the paperwork to launch Summer's Motorcycle Technical Institute, Sophie's idea. She said if we were going to do this, it had to sound official. And you know what's funny? I spent my whole life trying to get my parents to see me, to be proud of me. But now that I was finally building something real, something that mattered, I didn't give a damn whether they noticed or not. Their opinion didn't matter anymore. That night, Sophie and I were sharing takeout and talking shop when my phone buzzed. A text. From Caleb. Mom and Dad are freaking out. Might lose the house over this contract mess. Can you help? I just stared at it. After everything they put me through, after leaving me for dead, they still had the guts to ask for more. I typed back. You're my brother. But none of you acted like family when I was bleeding out on that floor. I've got a real family now. Good luck with your baseball career. Then I blocked his number. Sophie came up behind me, wrapped her arms around my shoulders. You okay? I nodded. Yeah. Actually, I think I am. I felt peaceful. Like I'd finally let go of the weight I'd been dragging my whole life. They made their choice. Now I was making mine. A few months later, I heard from an old high school buddy that my parents did lose the house. Couldn't keep up with the mortgage after draining everything for Caleb's contract buyout. They moved into a tiny apartment on the edge of town. Dad had to come out of retirement. He's stocking shelves at the hardware store now. Mom picked up part-time work at some department store. Karma, man. It doesn't miss. Whenever I start to feel bad about it, I just picture that pool of blood spreading across my shop floor while they were off celebrating with champagne. The guilt fades real quick after that. As for Caleb, well, his career flamed out in record time. After all the money they spent fixing his contract situation, he showed up to training overweight with a chip on his shoulder. They gave him a few chances, then they cut him loose after one lousy season. Last I heard, he's coaching JV baseball at a small-town high school. Still telling people he almost went pro. The golden child finally had to face reality. He wasn't talented. Just spoiled. Sometimes I wonder if he ever figured out how much our parents gave up for him and how little they cared about the other son in the house. It's been 3 years now since everything fell apart. Sophie and I got married last spring. Just a small ceremony, our friends, her family, no drama. The shop? Our little motorcycle school now has full certification and a wait list 2 months long. We're even kicking around the idea of opening a second location. My leg still gives me hell. I limp, always will. But I've learned to work around it. Some nights, I wake up in a cold sweat. Phantom pain burning down my leg. Memories of that day still sharp in my head. But Sophie's always there. She holds me close until it passes, until I fall asleep again. My old family left me behind. Left me to die. But my real family? They give me a reason to live. And that's more than enough for me. So here's the thing I've been wondering. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have cut them off like I did? Tried to forgive? I think about that sometimes. Wonder if I made the right call. But then I look around at what I've built, who have become, the life Sophie and I are creating, and I think, maybe it wasn't just the right call. Maybe it was the only one I could have made.